I advise you probably not to do that. The floor is somewhat, it's hard to see from that vantage point, but the floor is pretty much clear. The last time I was just there in the fall when I took some people on a tour, it was closed off. So you couldn't walk out there. I would be fine walking out there, but if you are afraid of heights, maybe just keep looking straight ahead and don't look down. But this is a pretty amazing view, and Kate scoped it out to find it because it is very busy in there today. But the store itself was in 1894. A gentleman named Théophile Bédard and Alphonse Comte, they were cousins. They decided to open a store after the success of the Bon Marché. So they decided how to open up a store. So to find Teresa, to find the video, you find Kate's, and then you either pin it in the top right-hand corner, or if you're on an iPhone or iPad, you could just double click it. But the store itself started out, of course, it's just a small store. But in 2 years, they ended up buying the entire block. It is the largest store in the world after Macy's in New York. So it is huge. It originally had this grand staircase that went through the center. Oh, we get to see some fashion. Oh, there's Santa. Santa's all dressed up, wearing a poncho of some sort. I'm not into the hipster Santa, gotta say it. Not into it. The Samaritan as a hipster Santa, he just gives me the creeps. But they opened up this store, and in 1932 he also opened and founded a favorite of all of ours, and I did not know this until I was looking into him. He started Monoprix, and we all, if you've been to Paris, you love Monoprix. I describe it to people as the French version of Target, but better. So it's really fantastic. So I loved it when I learned that little fact. Kate also said that there's actually people directing traffic onto the escalator. So I think we're going to see him in a second. And they ended up getting out, so we could get out of here. But during World War II, because of the family was Jewish, they were forced out, of course, and it was taken over by the Vichy government. And then after the war, they luckily were able to get it back. Bédard bought out his cousin at one point, and today the same family still runs the company. They, of course, own quite a few other things. They sold Monoprix at one point in the 80s. But the same family, descendants of the same family, still run the company, which is kind of cool. We're just going to check out and do some virtual shopping here at the same time. I'm just pretty happy we have a signal coming through here. I wasn't sure if we would. I shouldn't say that too quickly, right? Glenda, it will be on YouTube after the fact. Because we have to do this with basically two cameras, with Kate's camera in Paris and then my vocals, we are kind of pigeonholed into basically Zoom is the only option we really have to do this, unless I'm sure, as things go, they keep making things easier on other platforms. But until then, this is how we do it. There's another great view of the tree underneath it. But the tree that the store officially opened in 1912 into the version that we see. And so it was inaugurated in 1912. And that was the first year they did the facade all lit up with Christmas lights. In the 20s and 30s, it got even bigger. They started in 1945. Working with a different designer every year to design the windows and the theme and the trees. And so in 1976 is when they started the huge tree in the center. It is 23 meters high, which is 75 feet. And the very first one was all aluminum. So it hung there from the ceiling, which is quite the feat to see it see it hanging from there. The ceiling itself is stunning with the stained glass. They've added 2 floors onto the store over time. And a really cool thing is that you could go up to the very top and get this great view of the city. And from behind the opera, which is absolutely beautiful up there. In the nicer months, you could go up there and sit and have apéro, and you could have, I think you could even have lunch up there with a whole view of the city. It's really gorgeous. But the store itself, it said, I was reading that actually 2020 was its worst year in history, of course, because partially it was closed. But it was saying that most of the business that comes from the store is from visitors from China. So because they still aren't allowed in Paris, they still haven't opened up France yet to them. They still aren't doing so great, but it looks the amount of people in there today, hopefully they're doing some shopping. As the poor Paris, they had 3 horrible years in December in a row. 3 years ago, there was the Gilets Jaunes, which basically was closing down. It started in November, so the weekends in December were horrible, and most of these stores had to close. Then you had the transit strike the next year that went on for well over a month. And then last year, of course, was the lockdown. So, businesses like this haven't done so well. So hopefully this year they all do a little bit better. But the stores itself, there's all the different stores around it. There's also the amazing store that's basically the groceries. And it's absolutely gorgeous inside. There is a ton of people here. So we're going to hopefully get to and show you and share with you some of the windows, but we might have a lot of heads to get over. And it's kind of the signal. I don't think the signal's not the best right here, but we'll get to it. But look at that, is a lot of people. Be safe out there, Kate.
I'm keeping my mask well and truly on.
Yes, yeah, definitely keep your mask on.
Also, very nice little nose warmer.
Yeah, it is. That is true. Yeah, they should be selling some like nice winter, like insulated ones. I don't know how well that it would do. But we have all these great windows. So they design the windows. It takes over a year. They have a whole team of people that design the windows. Each year it's different. And they have all of these. It was first started in 1945. Oh, that looks like the cinnamon bear. Does anybody know the cinnamon bear? Did anybody else have the cinnamon bear, or was that like a thing in the Northwest? But that guy looks like the cinnamon bear. Very fun. But there's all sorts of different trees because it's the 1, 2, 3 Christmas is the theme, and there's all sorts of different themes. There's also different toys. There's Pixar and Marvel and Star Wars and Disney. So it's really great for the kids to see all these. We used to have the store when I was little in Portland. It was Meyer and Frank, and they used to have these windows like this that had like all the animatronic little moving pieces. And I remember always going with my grandparents to go see those windows, and it was always one of our favorite things. And you'd get to see the cinnamon bear, and then go up to the Christmas village and ride on this little train that went around the ceiling, and you'd look down and see just stacks and stacks of toys, which was always really fun. But sadly, they got rid of that long, long ago. So hopefully we'll see some of the windows here, but it's quite busy. And each one of them is different. So but each of the designers work on these. And of course, they're selling things at the same time, but also a really fun thing that they're doing inside. And I'm very sad to see that it closes Christmas Eve, but they have a roller disco in there, and it plays the music from Disney movies, and it's a roller disco. So you could go in there and rent roller skates, which, up until I don't know how old I was, is that's what I was going to do. I was going to grow up and be a professional roller skater. And I don't even think there was such a thing at the time, but it was what I was going to do. Now today, if I had got on roller skates, I could possibly injure myself, but the dream is still there. The dream is still alive. But inside it was so that astronaut Santa, he's supposed to spin around. But Gaston Deschamps was a mechanical toy maker, and he was the one who first started these. And he was inspired by American Robert Peary, who had who was the first person to reach the North Pole by dog sled. So he did one of the very first windows, and it was dedicated to him. And that was back in 1912 when the store first opened. So it, you know, they didn't do all the windows like today. They just had this one window at the time back in 1912. So that would have been really cool. And you could see they had, they were all broken. The images were all broken when I looked on the Galeries Lafayette the other day to see, because I wanted to share some of the photos from some of the past trees, but all the photo links are broken. And I even tried it on a couple different, 2 different computers and my phone, and none of the images work. So hopefully they get those fixed, but you could hopefully see those later on, because it would be great to see some of those trees. They've had, you know, Louis Vuitton, they've had, you know, all sorts of designers over the years design that tree in the center. And it just must be just a massive, massive undertaking to do that and to put that up, and even just to hang it there. I mean, those trees are very heavy. I'm sure they do a lot to make it as light as they possibly could. But it still would be quite the undertaking to put a tree hanging from the ceiling in there. But it's very cool. And it's so nice to see all of this back. Last year, they didn't do as much, of course, because the stores were closed. But a lot of, like, even just the lights that are on the street, they didn't have as many of those last year, because sadly, since everything was closed down, you know, they still put a few of the lights up, but we didn't have the villages, and we didn't have all of that. That's a very fancy Chloe Barbie doll there. Full-size mannequin doll. And we turned, Kate has her volume off just because sometimes when we walk through these crowds, it gets very, very loud, but it's, you're good, Kate. It's fun to hear the noise of the streets, but right now all we would hear is lots and lots of people. This one's a great one. I love this one. I love the little shelf of Santas and a very sparkly dress. Can never go wrong with sparkles. This is always a good time of the year to stock up on sparkly things, because you could wear them all the time. Do what you want to do. Oh, and a Santa village. I do love a Santa village. And today is tonight. Make sure, if you got my newsletter this week, you know what tonight is. Tonight is St. Nicholas. Tomorrow is. And so tonight, make sure you put out a pair of shoes by the fireplace and hope that St. Nicholas will come by and drop off some chocolates for you. And I also put on the story of St. Nicholas also on my website. So you could go check that out at ClaudineHemingway.com and find it there. But it's the actual story of St. Nicholas is kind of brutal, as a lot of those things are. But it has a happy ending. So you could you know, definitely check that out. And it's a fun little story. But yes, it's kind of fun.
I'm not sure I can get down to those side windows because there's tons of people.
Well, we could head over to the back of the opera. And thank you everybody for joining us today. And we love to bring these to you guys every weekend. Look at all those beautiful trees. And this is, you know, we might not love the fact that it gets dark so early just because it just makes you want to go to bed really early. But you know, it is great that it gives us more hours to enjoy all these beautiful lights. And the people that wrap those trees, they do a darn good job. When you just kind of throw the lights up around it, it's always funny to look when you're, you know, at night when you're driving. But when you do it like this and you wrap every one of those branches, that takes some time. That takes a very long time, but the payoff is worth it.
I thought of you the other day, Claudine, because there was a pompier in a tiny pair of shorts wrapping the tree outside the Moulin de la Galette.
And did you not get some photos?
I actually didn't get photos, sadly. He was right up the tree, so it's quite the view.
Oh, goodness gracious. Photos or a video. That wouldn't be a bad sight. They're out selling their calendars right now. But look at all those people. Oh my gosh, it's like just a sea of people, which is, you know, it's good to see people back out, but that's a lot of people. And Kate's going to try to get her way over to we're going to walk along the opera, the gorgeous opera. And there's that beautiful tree behind it too. Out here in the center. I hope everywhere, you know, let us know where everybody is watching from. And I hope that you guys have some little spots where you live that have some pretty lights, even if it's just in your neighborhood. I wish that nobody in my neighborhood really puts many lights up, but I did put my Eiffel Tower. It's this metal Eiffel Tower that's about 4 feet tall that I found at Target years and years ago, probably like 15 years ago. It's for like your garden. And I have blue, white, and red lights, and I wrap it. And I do have to admit that at all times it's in my living room, but it's at Christmas, it goes outside and I look at it all day from my desk. So on those days where it's really dark and foggy, I really get to enjoy it. So it's not too bad. So, but I hope you guys all have lots of light wherever you are. And we're just behind. We're just right behind the opera right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we are. The beautiful opera house. Look at that. I was gonna say, look at the moon. It's a beautiful full moon. Oh, there's two of them. And this is right down here is where you could, the bus that comes from CDG always comes. So if you take the bus from the airport when you arrive, they all come over here. But of course, this is the gorgeous opera house of Charles Garnier that was built after Napoleon III was almost assassinated. And so they decided that they needed a new opera house built. But it looks like we have a lot of construction ugliness going on up here. But that's okay, even though we don't love to see it. It keeps these things going for hundreds of years more, we hope. But he of course, they did a contest to see who was going to design this new opera house. And Viollet-le-Duc was one of the people that was in it that, of course, did Notre Dame. And so Charles Garnier wasn't very well known. And so his design was actually picked to do this gorgeous opera house. But Napoleon III wanted something that was a little safer. This side that we're coming up to right here, this is how you go if you're going to go visit the opera house. This is where you go in. And there's Charles up there, the little bust of Charles up there over that really cool. I love this little where it has the engraved design of the inside of the Opera Garnier. And that's his bust up there. And then to the right was the former entrance that Napoleon III would come in, take his carriage up there and go inside the door. That was the entrance there on the side. And it's really gorgeous. Usually that's where you line up to go visit. When you're in Paris and if you go to the Musée d'Orsay, save your ticket because you could get into You can get into the opera to visit, not to go to the opera. They actually, well, it's called the Palais Garnier. They pretty much just do ballets here. So, but if you were a member of the Orsay, you could go in for free. So, but it is gorgeous inside. You definitely, the outside of this building is stunning, but the inside is even better. I think when I'm there, I should go in and do a little, see if we could do a video from inside. It's so dependent on when they are doing performances. There's also the theater, the inner theater itself with the ceiling that's by Chagall, which is absolutely amazing. I think I visited about 5 times before I actually was able to see the ceiling, because if they are doing rehearsals or doing anything inside, they don't let you in. So you could check in advance on their website. It'll tell you when it's going to be closed, but don't really rely on that, because every time I went, I would go when it would say that it would be open. But every time the theater was actually closed. And so one day I was walking by and I thought, I'll just check again. And I got in there and saw that stunning building. If Georgine, if you take your Orsay ticket in there, you could get a discount to go into the Palais Garnier for a visit, not to see a show, but to go in there for a visit. And then you of course have to the right over there, there's the Carpose. Well, it's actually a copy now, at Carpose of the Dance, which is also in the Orsay. And that is you could see the copy up there now. The copy is actually by Paul Belmondo, who was the author or artist and father of Jean-Paul Belmondo, who the amazing French actor that just passed away a few months ago. He did the copy that ended up going up here, because the original, when it was first installed, people were freaked out about it because it showed these people that were very happy and dancing and naked. And so they have people freaked out because, you know, I've shared a few times before. Most of the time you only saw naked people in art when it was allegorical or religious. And then of course, when Manet did Olympia and Déjeuner sur l'herbe, and they showed people as everyday people, contemporary people, naked, everybody just freaked out. So they did the same as with the sculpture there. We'll go down towards the right, or I guess if this is a way to get across. They freaked out about it, and somebody, after they unveiled it, threw black ink on it and tried to destroy it. They were going to take it down, but then one of the many wars broke out, and so the siege of Prussia, or into Paris, and so they ended up leaving it. And then later they took it down just because it was getting beat up by the elements, and so the original is hanging inside the Orsay now. And this beautiful building here, I'm so glad to see all of the scaffolding down, is the Café de la Paix, which used to have, you know, the who's who of Paris used to hang out there, including it was Josephine Baker, of course, and Oscar Wilde. But in 1862 it was opened. It was the Grand Hôtel de la Paix, and it was inaugurated in May of 1862. Emile Zola would come here, Hemingway, of course, Guy de Maupassant. They all came here. And on Christmas 1921, almost 100 years ago, Hemingway and Hadley, Ernest and Hadley Hemingway, came here. They had only been in Paris for a few days at that point. They decided to go in there and have a lovely fancy meal. And they didn't bring enough cash with them. And so he ended up he left her here. Well, he walked back over to the hotel at Hotel Jacob on Rue Jacob, very close to Saint-Germain-des-Prés, or Boulevard Saint-Germain. And he ended up leaving her there to go back and get some money. We could head back down Avenue de l'Opéra. We'll go across here, and then we're gonna, I think it's after here, we'll take a right on Rue Denot. So we could go by Harry's. And thank you guys. Somebody was asking, you could we love bringing these to you guys, but a tip is always appreciated to keep this going. And you could do that at my Venmo or PayPal. Both of those are Claudine at ClaudineHemingway.com. And I put a little link in here. And so you could go ahead and do that there. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we'll keep going down Opera past that next block. That building over here, here on the corner, look at all those beautiful wreaths. So we'll cross here. We're gonna jag around a few bits. I got to learn from Kate today, and this was so perfect. She sent me a message saying that they had the lollipop man was directing traffic. And at first I was like, what? And then I thought about it. It is so fitting. And I'm now going to use this anytime I see when the guys are standing there, you know, when they're directing traffic and they're standing there holding the sign, it looks like a lollipop. It was the greatest thing ever. So this building here on the right used to be the International Herald Tribune was located. It turned into the International New York Times, and it was opened in 1887, and there's even a plaque on there. But you know, everybody knows kind of the International Herald Tribune because of a bout de soufflé, which Jean Seberg was wearing that T-shirt. With Jean-Paul Belmondo, probably one of his most famous roles that I think most Americans know. It's in English, it's Breathless, but that T-shirt is so popular, and it's so well known. And then they reissued, starting to make those again last year. But this is the Avenue Opera. It was actually started with Napoleon Bonaparte. And then they didn't get very far. Napoleon III, this was one of their biggest projects they did. It's one of the only avenues in the entire city that does not have any trees on it. And it was originally going to be one of the great access, like the one that we have that starts at the Louvre behind the Bernini Louis XIV statue and goes all the way out to La Défense. But this one, they wanted to have this huge viewpoint access that went from the opera that's behind us all the way through the Louvre, across onto the left bank, and to Boulevard Saint-Germain. We'll take a right here, Kate. But it never went through. So you get over to the other side of the river, right to the quay, and then that's it. And this little street has a little treasure on it, that if you go to Paris and you love a cocktail, this is where you have to go. And probably almost most of you, I'll say, one of your favorite cocktails was probably invented here at Harry's New York Bar. On the left, there is this is a fantastic place to go. It's probably the only thing that's even slightly American that I will even go to in Paris. But Harry's New York Bar is an institution, and it dates back to 1911. So it is 110 years old, and it was open on Thanksgiving Day. And it was basically completely taken apart by a man named Ted Sloan. He was an American jockey, and he had a bar, the entire bar taken apart, all of the wood paneling and the bar and everything. He had it shipped over to Paris, and they opened this on Thanksgiving in 1911. And he later ended up selling it. He had employed a Scottish bartender named Harry McCallum, and he ended up selling it to him later, and that's when it became Harry's New York Bar. But it's pretty cool inside. It was the very first bar in all of Paris and France to sell Coca-Cola in 1919. But it was February 8th, 1923 that Harry turned it over, and it became Harry's New York Bar. But here is where they invented the Bloody Mary. They invented my very favorite, the French 75. The sidecar, a drink called the White Lady, is it the Boulevard. I can't remember what it is, but that was created there. They have a menu, and in the menu, it has probably about 30 very well-known drinks that were all created at that little tiny place. Inside, it is covered with like the old felt pennants for American colleges. So that's always kind of fun to see. I don't think they make those anymore. At least they don't make them in felt. There is a piano bar downstairs as well, so you could go check that out. But everybody from Fitzgerald's would go there. Hemingway, of course. Ian Fleming would go there. He used Harry's in many of his books that he wrote about James Bond. They have a cocktail they created there called the James Bond. But every year every 4 years for the election, they do a straw poll there. So you come in and you have your drink and you put your straw on who you want. And it's almost always correct, except for 5-6 years ago, it was not correct. But it's always that's kind of a big place. If you're American and you're there for an election, it's kind of a fun place to go and check it out. And then right past that, there was the Theater de No, and it was opened in 1921 by actress Jane Runar, and it's there on the right. And it's finally, after the scaffolding has finally come down, it was being repaired for a very long time. But what was really cool about this is that the interior was done by the actress's best friend, who is Jean Levin, who was an amazing designer, who does not get credit for everything that she did. And she had created, we did a podcast episode about her, so definitely go check it out. I'm going to put notes after this on my website. I'm going to create a special tab on my website, and I will put the link in on my the Facebook event for this. But we did a podcast episode about her. She created some of her own colors, including the Lavin blue. And so inside, it's one of the only interiors that ever was created, other than her personal home, that was created with those colors. And sadly, there was a fire in 1971 that destroyed that, but a lot of it has all been replaced. It is still a theater today that does more like special events and stuff, but it is really cool. And you could see some of the photos online. Look at that. And and of course, a history plaque. I love those. But Jean Levin was amazing. She did everything before anybody else, including the person that gets all the credit for it. She was the first person to create, first fashion designer to create her own perfume. She was the first one that designed for the entire family. She designed for her daughter, and actually once she had her daughter, she was so in love with her that's what she spent all her time on. And people would see them out shopping and see her daughter in these beautiful designs and say, I want that for myself. And so she started designing clothes that was basically, like mommy and me clothes, so you could dress your daughter, just like you did. And then she started designing sportswear. She designed for men. She was one of the first people to use the color black in a lot of her clothing. So she did all of these things before another woman who shall not be named. Her name is just as bad as that one, as the Voldemort. She did all of those things before that woman did, who gets all of the credit for it. So we are going to head across the street and then down, and we are heading right toward Place Vendôme. So we're going to go on this side of the street, because we are going to walk down the street and basically step right over. You won't even know this, but if you've ever walked down the street, you've stepped over the grave of somebody very famous in French history. Nancy, you find Kate's image, and then you could right click in the corner on the little blue bubble. There's that horrible name we don't like. You could right click on the corner and pin it to your screen, or if you're on an iPhone or iPad, you could just double tap the image and it'll stay right there. and there's beautiful streets. So we are on Rue de la Paix, and this street itself is basically filled with jewelers now. It used to be covered, this whole side of the street used to have tons of fashion designers. And they are all going, it's mostly all jewelers over here. Elena, you could change your view so that you don't see anybody's camera. So you could go up there and change, either it's the grid or the speaker. You could change that so you don't see anybody else's cameras. But coming up here we're almost there. When you get to, is it this doorway? No, I think it's the next doorway. When we get to number 3, Kate, we'll stop for a second. Yeah, it's beautiful walking down on this street. There's lots of, lots of places to just drool over the windows. And and some fantastic hotels, of course, because we are heading towards Place Vendôme. You can see the column coming up there. But I think it's this one, number 3. It has a gorgeous door above it. Or maybe it's down a little, I guess maybe it's down a little further. But at number 3, so this whole area at one point used to be a convent. And this, going back to the 16th, 17th century. And it was the convent of the Capuchin. And from 1604 until 1806, it was here. Oh, it's the next door. It's that one with the kind of has the half circle on the top. And so this was Napoleon Bonaparte wanted this extended down through. And in 1904, it was, they did a bunch of digging here. And they ended up finding underneath this whole spot some graves. And so when it was first demolished in 1806, it was there was a whole bunch of graves here in the cemetery of the convent, and most of those were all removed and put into the catacombs. Some of them they were taken over to the Basilique Saint-Denis up there in the north of Paris. But then in 1904, they ended up finding a few other graves underneath here that they ended up moving. But there were some graves that they just left here. And one of those graves is thought to be, that's a gorgeous door, is thought to be the grave of Madame de Pompadour. And Madame de Pompadour was the great love of Louis XV. His headmistress. He, even after the years and years after they stopped their intimate relationship, she was always his number one most trusted advisor. Madame de Pompadour is very, very well known as far still even today, most every French person will know Madame de Pompadour. And so they've never discovered her grave. So they do believe that her grave is most likely still here underneath the sidewalk at number 3. So when you walk down the street, you would never even know it. There's not even a marker marking that this could be you're stepping on her grave here on the sidewalk. They've never gone back to look for it. Who knows, someday when they do another do some more construction on it, maybe they'll unearth her and take her someplace. But Madame de Pompadour, she was she did all of these things. Louis XV had the palaces built for her. She lived at the Elysee Palace when she was in Paris, and so that used to be for her. There's always been this rumor of a tunnel underneath it, so Louis XV could go and visit her. But she was an amazing woman. She was a huge proponent of the art. She also learned how to do engraving. She learned how to etch on gems. So, when you see those old cameos and things like that, that was basically what she would do. She had a printing press in her room, in one of her rooms that was at Versailles. And there's this gorgeous pastel painting of her that she's surrounded by books and everything, because she wanted to kind of show and leave this image that she was a huge proponent for the arts. And she basically, there was all these artists that she ended up that she got to the attention of Louis XV. So she left behind a lot of great things. So Nancy, you need to find Kate's image, Kate French, and then in the right-hand corner, she's showing the windows right now. You either right click on it and you pin it. If you're on an iPhone or an iPad, you could just double click her image and it'll stay on your screen. And so of course, now we are going into the Place Vendôme, the beautiful Place Vendôme, which was in 1699. Jules Mansart, he laid out the plan for this royal square. And they actually created the facades of the building before they created the buildings themselves. So they had this whole around it was just the facades that he had created. And the deal was is that you could purchase, you could purchase these locations, but you had to keep the facade the same. So how, you did the other side of it and the inside was up to you, but the facade all had to change. And then because this was originally the Place Louis le Grand, which was for Louis XIV, and in the center of it, it had a great equestrian statue of Louis XIV that once stood there. Now today, it's basically all jewelers and very high-end boutiques. Of course, this is where the Ritz is. I went in there. If Jenny's watching, she took me in there to the Schiaparelli showroom that's just right there on the corner. And Schiaparelli, the designer herself, used to live here as well. So I think it's in the same building, but the Ritz is right over here. And of course we have the column. Look at that little fairy. Maybe we should take that around the city, Kate. I told her I said, just avoid the big billboard to the C word. The C word as in Chanel. Oh, I do love the horses. I love to see the mounted police. And I always, one time I wanted to pet the horse, but they frowned upon that. But then another time I saw them letting a child do it. So I guess it's nice to let kids do it, but why can't we? I wanted to pet it. And the Plaza, the Vendôme, so the Vendôme column here with Napoleon on the very top of it, which was just the anniversary the other day of his coronation. And I shared a bunch about the different pieces of the regalia that he used on my Instagram, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge. And I also did a huge story that took about 2 hours to put together. But I went into a bunch of detail on where you could find some of those pieces in Paris still today, in the Louvre and other places. It's really fascinating. That painting by Jacques-Louis David is one of my favorites. But the Vendôme column was first done in 1810. It was first done by Jacques Godin and Jacques-Baptiste Lepere, and it was created from the cannons and the guns taken from Austerlitz. And it is about 400 of them that were put together. There's 425 bronze plates that basically circle all the way up to the very top, with all sorts of different bas-reliefs of scenes of battle. It's really like when you really get up close like this, it's really stunning to see it. You could see all of the intricate pieces in there. There are steps that go all the way up to the top. I've never known that to be open to anybody, the general public, to go up there. I'm sure at one point long ago it was, but sadly we cannot do that now. Somebody does go up there every once in a while, because sometimes they do put French flags up there when it comes to certain holidays. But there's the statue of Napoleon on the top has changed over time. But this guy over here, this is the Calder Flying Dragon is what it's called. And it was put up here for FIAC this year, back in September or October, I believe it was. And it's still up, and it'll be here till January 2nd. They'll put something up here that lasts a little longer than the event does itself. And they did a couple years ago, they did one that was a blow up Christmas tree, but it did not look really like a Christmas tree. If anybody saw that, it didn't last very long. But it's pretty cool to see. It's huge in red. This was one of the last pieces that he did in 1975, and then he died the next year. There was an amazing exhibit at the Picasso Museum a few years ago that was called Der Picasso, kind of showing how they influenced each other, which was really interesting. But you see, oh, there's some flags up there right now, but you see Napoleon up there. That is the third incarnation of him, but he matches the first one. So the first one was put up there in 1863 under Napoleon III. And so they added that up there. And then, or that was the third one. So he was the copy of the very first one that went up there. He is dressed in a toga. He looks like Julius Caesar. And then in 1833, they put a second one in there where he dressed more like a commander. But Gustave Courbet, the artist, in 1870, he was the president of the General Surveillance of French Museums. And so he was there to basically keep an eye on the collections of the museums during the when the Prussians moved in, to make sure nothing was taken, much like the amazing Jacques Jouard did with the Louvre, who it was just the anniversary of his birthday just the other day. Oh, do we have some lights out there on the tree? Isn't that the worst when you put the tree up and then later the lights go out, and then it's already decorated and you can't take all the ornaments off? Always the worst. But Gustave Courbet decided that he didn't like the Napoleon that was up there, and he thought that it needed to be taken down, or it needed to be changed. He said that he didn't think that it was too gratifying of the empire and everything they stood for and the wars, and so in the imperial dynasty. So he thought it should be taken down. So he requested it in a motion, and then it was actually declined. But they ended up deciding that they were going to take it down anyway. And so on May 5th, 1874, they decided it was going to be taken down. And on May 16th, a group of men went up there. They climbed up to the very top. They tied a rope around Napoleon's his body. On the floor of the Place Vendôme, where we just were standing, they covered it with sand and straw. And a bunch of people stood back, and they kept pulling and pulling, and they toppled him all the way from the very top of that. I mean, that's pretty high, and it's bronze. Pulled him off of the top. He hit the ground. And Courbet was not a part of it. He did stand back and heard about this happening. So he went back and he saw it happening. But he basically was blamed for the whole thing. He was taken to court. He was arrested. He was convicted. He was put in jail for 6 months. He got out. He basically was ordered to pay for this. They decided years later in 1873 that it was his fault. He needed to pay for it. So he basically lost everything. He basically had to sell everything that he had, his paintings, everything. He ended up leaving to go to Switzerland because he was worried that they were going to try to arrest him again, which is where he lived the rest of his life, and he died. But he was blamed for it and held responsible for it. They ended up, of course, replacing and putting Napoleon back up there where he stands. This is the only, really the only statue that you will find of him. But used to be when they had the equestrian statue of Louis XIV that was here, it was taken down, of course, with the revolution, but only his foot remains, and it's a very large foot, and it used to be in the Louvre in the Corps-Puget, but when the Carnavalet reopened, he moved to the Carnavalet. So you can see his foot, his one-time foot now at the that was part of the statue, but that's all that remains of him because it was all melted down. But they do also have at the Carnavalet, which is really cool, part of the pieces of Henry IV, that we know the statue of Henry IV that is at the end of the center of Pont Neuf at the end of Ile de la Cité. And he was actually he was destroyed and melted down, but some of his pieces remain. And you can see this also at the Carnavalet. And it's really cool because you see kind of the inside structure of what is inside his leg and his foot and his hand, which is really interesting. And the foot is nearby there too, Louis's foot. Of course, here we have the Ritz. Oh, isn't that little perfect? The bear. Looks like the little bellhops. My Instagram is Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge. And on Facebook, it's just Bleu Blanc Rouge. And then I put all these up on YouTube afterwards. And that is also, you could just search Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge on YouTube. I'll put a link after I get this uploaded. Thank you, Angela. I'll get these all uploaded on there. You could also join my Patreon, which helps fund this little project as well. My Patreon is Bleu Blanc Rouge, and I will be back in Paris in 3 weeks, and we'll have lots more videos too. Oh, there's a Schiaparelli that in there. The showroom was just right up and over, and so it had these gorgeous views out into the Place Vendôme that Jenny and I went there. Jenny with Belle Epoque. She does Fashion Week experiences in Milan and London and in Paris. So go and check her out. It's really, she does great things. So if you ever want to go and see some of the shows and be able to go to some, some of them just do these shows in their actual ateliers. It's really fun. And so go check her out. And she's just awesome in general too. But this is the gorgeous, gorgeous Place Vendôme. And so nice to see all this beautiful Christmas back. And the Ritz. There's all sorts of other, I remember watching this show about Valentino, and I think down kind of in that corner, if you look right above where the dragon is, I think that's where Valentino has offices, because this documentary about him shows him in his office, and it was there. And of course the Ritz with the bar Hemingway in there. Has anybody been following the auction of all of Karl Lagerfeld's stuff at Sotheby's? It's thousands and thousands of lots of his items that he owned, his furnishings, and even his Rolls Royce. It's been fascinating to watch. Interesting to see some of the, something that is estimated to go for, 80 euros, and it goes for, 25,000 euros. It's just insane. But here we are at the Place Vendôme, so perfectly lit up. And I love how everything in Paris, how they decorate the streets going down that corner. On that opposite corner, we saw the where Louis Vuitton is, and they have, I'm really happy to see they put that gold sun back up. They did that a few years ago. And then they did something different too, I think 2 years ago, but I'm glad to see that gold sun up, which is really cool, because inside they have this statue of Louis XIV when he was dressed up, when he did a play, and he's dressed up as the Sun King, and it's absolutely stunning. Look, another tree's out. Kate, is it pretty cold there today?
It's not as bad as it has been.
That's
the last weekend was unbearably cold. The last couple of days, the winds kind of calmed down, so it's okay.
And it was, you had some snow the other day.
We did. We had it was snowing for 10 minutes, and then it turned to hail. And then it was sunny about 5 minutes after that.
Yeah. It's always pretty when it snows in Paris.
Yeah. We've been getting a lot of rain the last couple of days, sadly. Although weirdly, it's not showing on the weather report, but it has been raining a lot.
Yeah, you can never trust the iPhone weather when it comes to Paris. It'll show you that it's, I think it's just in general, but it'll show you it's pouring down rain and you're standing outside and it's sunny, or it's the opposite. You never know. But thank you guys all so much for joining us. And if you'd like to send us a little tip, you could do it at Venmo or PayPal at claudine@claudinehemingway.com. We appreciate any little token. Thank you so much. And next Sunday, we will bring you Paris from the left bank. So of course, I am a Rive Gauche girl through and through. And so I can't wait to see some Christmas on the left bank. There is the Christmas village that's out in front of Saint-Germain-des-Prés. So we might have to go around there and check that out. But maybe Kate's gonna go over to Harry's and have a French 75 now.
Named after me,
I know, it should be. It's named after a gun, but it should be the Kate French 75. I did the Hemingway Daiquiri that everybody knows, that's a staple in bars. A friend of mine here in Portland has a restaurant, and he had it on the menu, and I kept writing on the menu the Claudine Hemingway Daiquiri. And so finally one day he told me to come over for lunch, and then he put the menu down and he just decided to change it. So it was just changed to the Claudine Hemingway Daiquiri.
Oh, fantastic.
So we'll go in there and change it to the Kate French 75.
Yeah, we can have our namesake cocktails together.
We'll just tell them that's what it's always been called. But thank you guys so much. And then maybe Kate will jump on so you can see beautiful Kate. And so her mama could see her since she was just here. And there's Kate. And thank you guys all so much for joining us. And we can't wait to bring you more this week. Tomorrow on the podcast I do with Crystal Kenny, Paris History of Becca Hemingway, is all about the Musée d'Orsay, because it is the 35th anniversary when it first just opened this week. So I'm going to share with you the history of the Musée d'Orsay, but also the Palais d'Orsay that came before it, which, there's not a lot known about that, which is still difficult to find. But it was a beautiful building, and the Musée d'Orsay, of course, is a favorite of everybody. So check that out tomorrow. And follow me on Instagram, and you can follow Kate and all of her beautiful artwork that she does at KGS French, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
I think I forgot the S one time, but check it out. Check Kate out, and we hope to see you guys all next Sunday.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Claudine.
Thank you all. And this will be on YouTube as well afterwards, so you can all see it. Thank you.
Thank you. It was fabulous.
Thank you. We'll see you next weekend.
Thank you. Glad you enjoyed. Bye.